I had been arrested several times before I even, got like even tried drugs or anything like that. I think the thrill and the adrenaline of what can I get away with, what was my first addiction. The first time I got arrested, I was 9 years old.
I'm a former Detroit police officer and rode with the One Percenter Motorcycle Club. During that time, I was involved in a lot of altercations. I had a gun shoved in my face. The trigger was pulled, and I got a plate under my left eye. I'm Manny Vitale, and this is my story. Hey guys, how you doing? I am Manny Vitale, host of My Fight, Our War, and we are back here in Connecticut with our amazing family here with, of course, my family with Ian, Big Mac Cronin, and everybody else. We are here for another reason as well that I have to get out there. It is for the Brian Cody Brothers and Sisters event that's going on this coming Saturday, August the 30th. And it's an amazing event with an amazing group of people, an amazing family. So please check that out. And, we're very blessed here at My Fight, Our War. We've got a lot of amazing people who come on, share their stories. And that's not always easy. You're sharing very personal, painful stories. And those stories are helpful. Those stories are going to help save someone's life. And we've been very blessed to have these people come on, these heroes that do this. So we've got someone on today who is going to do the same. And it's Glenn Titus. So Glenn, welcome to the show. And thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. And especially, Glenn told me this is the first show. So it's an honor to have you on for your first time doing the show and sharing your story. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, man. Let's start off, first, where you're from. Kind of let everyone know who you are, where you're from.
Well, my name's Glenn Titus, as he said. I was born and raised in Danbury. Not too far from here, actually, right on Main Street in Danbury. I was born in 81. So I got to, for me, I guess, I consider it a good life. Other people may not view it that way. I grew up in Laurel Gardens in the 80s and 90s, which was from the outside looking in, was probably a horrible place to live. It was riddled with crime, drugs, violence. It was everywhere. So from a young age, when like seeing people drinking, seeing, blunt guts on the floor, hypodermic needles, as far back as I can remember as a kid, I saw that all the time. Seeing people get stabbed. There was murders where I lived. I didn't see those, but this is right where I grew up. And I was probably one of maybe 3 or 4 white people that lived there. So growing up young, it was a challenge because I wasn't exactly welcomed. It was just me and my mom, no dad in the picture. I really don't know my family. Like my mom, she was born deaf, so she grew up different. She was raised different. She went to a different type of schooling than you or I would have went to. They basically taught her how to survive. Reading, writing, math, basic stuff to get you by. So there was never no, family talks, how was school, how you doing, if I got hurt, if I wasn't bleeding, I wasn't going to the hospital.
Man, so there no dad in the picture at all from day one. So it's just you and mom. Thinking about something like that. So totally deaf.
Yep.
So for you growing up, as far as communication with mom, how was that? Was it sign
language?
You had to learn that.
Not necessarily. I learned sign language. My mom could hear and she could speak correctly. Her dad, who came here from Eastern Europe through Ellis Island, joined the Army, ended up graduating from Harvard, majored in like 7 different languages, went on to work for NASA. He had a very comfortable living. So my mom had hearing aids from day one. So she could communicate with you or I,
gotcha.
just as good as anyone else. Like when you see the football coaches on the field, like covering their face, it's because of people like her, because she could read lips. So even if she couldn't hear you, she could read your lips and still have a conversation with you.
Oh, okay.
But
So
I learned sign language because it was nice to know.
yeah, be able just to have that communication. I mean, to right off the bat, man, like you said, seeing the drugs, the violence, and all that, being in the minority. I mean, boom, right off the bat, you're seeing this stuff, and you're part of it. And
It
with
became
that,
I normalized it.
yeah, you normalize it. Now, how old were you when you had your first experience with drugs,
Um,
alcohol, whatever?
I think I smoked some weed for the first time. I think I was about 11, 10 or 11. Um, and then I was about to turn 13, and this wonderful lady, her name is Rosie. She was like my second mother. She was she was actually, they called her the mother of the projects. She was built like a linebacker. Um, heavy crack dealer. She knew how to cook it. She was the best cook in town. And she took me in. I was best friends. I ended up being best friends with her son. Her name for me was White Boy. But I was getting ready to go away to juvie, and I went downstairs to go see her, and she gave me some Majorska and said, "Here, take a few good swigs of this before you go." And that was my first introduction to alcohol right there. But
So,
and I had been arrested several times before I even got like even tried drugs or anything like that. I think the thrill and the adrenaline of what can I get away with, what was my first addiction. The first time I got arrested, I was 9 years old.
9?
On
What
my
was did you get? What
I
was the
stole
charge?
I stole some batteries because Santa didn't bring me batteries for the remote control car.
So, so Glenn's like, I got this.
you know, my mom was poor.
Mhm.
We grew up on food stamps back when they were the paper kind.
Mhm.
Um, so the things that I wanted that she couldn't afford, I figured out ways to get on my own. Most of the time, none of them were good. I wanted that nice mountain bike down the road, that probably cost about a couple grand. I figured out ways to go and get those mountain bikes. Like I became an excellent thief. That went all the way up to cars, from anything from sneakers to cars. Like you know,
How old
18,
were you for when you made the jump from batteries to bikes to cars? How old were you when you stole your first car?
I was driving on main roads by the time I was 11.
11.
Yeah. First car I took out on the main road was a 1982 Lincoln Continental.
A big old Lincoln.
Yeah,
So
with the
here's
oval windows in the
11-year-old
back.
Glenn
Yeah,
going down Main Street
with
in a
with,
Lincoln.
with pillows under my ass.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
So I mean, this, like I said, when you get these stories, hearing different upbringings, but for you, this is all normal, man.
yeah, it was.
And you said that when you had that first swig, you were getting ready. Did I hear you were getting ready to go to juvie?
Yep.
What was that for? What were you going?
It
Why were
was
they sending you away?
there was a lot of truancy. There was a lot of larceny up to 2,500. There was a few operating a motor vehicle without the owner's permission, because when you're a juvenile, things are a little different, when it comes to charges.
So this was, you were 9, 11 when you took the Lincoln. So is that the juvie? Right
I
before
didn't know.
that?
I didn't get caught doing that with that car. We actually crashed the car. I was 12. I was in the passenger seat, but I was the one that took the car. And my buddy who was driving, he crashed, and they like immediately the blame was put on me because I had already had several run-ins with the police, and so and then the truancy, and it like everything just built up, and so they sent me away to Long Lane. Um, I was there for a few months, and then I went to the school called CJR out in Litchfield. It's like a vocational school. It was basically like a college for kids. Like I learned culinary, I learned power mechanics, I learned construction maintenance. I was on the running team. I was on both basketball teams. I was on the softball team. Uh, Spent time on the Appalachian Trail while I was there.
No shit. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
I was there for 16 months.
damn, I tell you, that sounds like a great opportunity.
You know what? Honestly, if I had had a better head on my shoulders, I actually tried to escape from there when I first got there. It was Easter weekend, and everyone went home, and I'm like, what the hell with this? My room didn't have a screen on one of the windows, so everyone left. I jumped out the window. I only made it like 2 miles down the road. Some nice people invited me in to feed me breakfast because they knew. But I'm young, I'm naive. They made me take my shoes off. They fed me a great breakfast, and then next thing you know, I see like staff members from CJR. Well, I'm like, oh man. but
But
yeah, one of the guys was actually the running coach, and I ended up being on his running team.
he's like, you made it this far in this amount of time.
I got there quick.
He's like, Glenn, did you ever consider track?
I was on the running team. I ran the Litchfield Hills Road Race with them. I ran it twice, which is a 7.5 mile race. I was on their cross country team.
And you said 16 months?
Yeah, I was there for 16 months. I was supposed to be there for 18 months, but I got to leave early because I did this wilderness school program, and I was out on the Appalachian Trail for like 18 days.
So like doing survival training?
It was a co-ed group. It was their first ever co-ed group, so I took advantage of that. But I knew parts of the course, like the trail that we were on, because I was at CJR long enough to go on 2 separate weekend trips, but it was the same area.
Okay.
But I hadn't. So for that whole time, like I hadn't smoked anything, I hadn't drank anything. I was really conditioning myself, and there was an 8.5 mile race at the end. And when I first got there, I told everyone I was going to win that race. There was a few other groups there. I came in 3rd place. There was 2 staff members that beat me.
Shit.
An hour and 13 minutes is how long it took me to run 8.5 miles.
So that is, I mean, for 16 months, man, to go from all these different vocations to that sounds like, just like you said, a great opportunity if your head was on straight.
Yes.
So here you do 16 instead of 18 months. And what happens when you leave there?
I got to go home. About 2 months later, I was right back in Long Lane.
Same place, right?
So Long Lane was like almost not jail, because it wasn't like all the doors were locked. Like there was no like walking around freely.
No coming and going.
It was for juveniles,
Okay.
Long Lane ended up having a bad rap for like the agency police officers, APOs, COs basically. They were letting kids fight and stuff like that, and it was caught on camera. It was on the news actually, long after I was there. But
man, so with this, you were there for 16 months and you got out, and did you say you were back in 2 months?
I was home for about 2, maybe 3 months. I ended up back in Long Lane. And then from there, I went to a different school. I went to this place, Mount St. John's in Deep River. I was only at this place for about 8-9 months, but same thing. It was a beautiful place. Like if my mind was in the right spot, I would have took proper advantage of it. I was on their basketball team. I was in their culinary program. We went to the Hoop It Up tournaments in New Haven. We came in 3rd place.
Jeez.
No, we came in 2nd place. 2nd place.
And obviously, this whole time you're sober.
Yeah.
You're not, using anything.
That's a key like point for me. The only times I managed to stay sober is when it was of no other choice but my own. I had no choice. I was in places where that stuff just wasn't accessible. But it was a great school. I didn't do great in school when I was home. But when I went to these 2 places, I managed to skip 9th grade in high school. I never set foot in 9th grade. I had gotten held back in middle school, and then I flew through school like I had been doing it like since I like right from the womb, and like I took off. I excelled, and I earned enough credits to get put back in my rightful grade. So I ended up skipping 9th grade.
Wow.
But when I left Mount St. John's to go to Danbury High, my records wasn't showing me as a sophomore. So I was like, you know what? I don't need this, and I quit school.
As a sophomore. So in 10th grade, you quit.
Yep. And I had met a girl during like weekend furloughs from Mount St. John's, and by the beginning of 1999, me and her were together. By the end of 1999, she was giving birth to my twins.
No kidding. And so you're 16?
I was about to be. I was 18.
18?
No, yeah, 18.
18. So now
17 going on 18.
So now you dropped out of high school and you're a dad with twins.
Yep.
Wow.
Working at Jiffy Lube.
And so with that, what's going on with the substance abuse? What's going on with
it was by that time it was a lot of ecstasy, a lot of acid, a lot of pot and drinking. You know, drinking wasn't out of control yet. But every chance we got, you know, it was like, all right, like I smoked all day, every day at work, you know, on my way home from work, to work. When I got home, it would be either acid or ecstasy. On the weekends, I would drink, you know, but things slowly progressed while I was trying to be a family man. You know, here I'm trying to be the man of the house, and of course, you know, the man of the house, you know, they got to come home, they got to have their drink. And, you know, at first it was just beer, and then it slowly went to liquor. I was working, I ended up working for a parking company, parking cars. And before I knew it, I was driving home drinking. You know, I'd finish the night there, and they'd be like, come on, have a drink. And next thing you know it, like, I'm breaking the one rule I said I would never do. However, that's when my adult time started. The revolving door at Bridgeport County. I've said my inmate number so many times. I've used it so many times. Now, I haven't been to prison in over 10 years. But I know my inmate number is 280-685.
When was day one when you went to prison?
It was the very beginning of 2000, right after the kids were born. They weren't even
here.
a year
You were
old.
19?
I went to Manson Youth Institution.
What was the charges for that?
I believe that time I think it was 7 failure to appears, and
so it was like a multiple.
I think it was like 4 or 5 operating under suspensions.
Wow.
I had gotten a Camaro right before they were born. I got clocked on the highway doing about 140 miles an hour, and they took that my license got suspended indefinitely. But like I said, I got to take care of the house. You know, I'm the man. I got to take care of things, and I just kept driving. And things just started. It started to build. At one point, I had the bounty hunters came to my house at one point, and it was I had 21 failure to appears and 36 operating under suspensions is what they came for me on.
No kid. That's when they came to arrest you. That's
yeah. They my girlfriend, the one who the mother of my kids, she had family that owned a bonds company, and every time I got arrested, it was, Glenn, where you at? And they would be right there.
And they bond you or bail you out.
Yep. And I just kept, every time it would come time, I'd get arrested. Come time for court, I'd be in the parking lot drinking a beer. You know what? I'll take care of this some other time, and I would just leave.
And they would continue. So then you get hit again. Call them up, and they'd help you out.
Yep.
No kid. Did they get to the point at some point say, you know what, Glenn, we ain't doing it?
I think they were there, but by then I was.
It's too late at that point.
They came for me one last time. This was like years later, and you know that case actually got dropped and thrown out of court. So, but that was my last police interaction, and that was over 10 years ago. But by that time I dug this hole, and it was I think when the bounty hunters came is when they had washed their hands.
No kid, no, that happened. So you're now are you still with the mother of
Hmm.
your children today?
No, no, not today. No,
Okay, so was she drinking and partying as well?
she was, but not the way.
Not to the extent.
Yeah,
Okay, so but she knew you were,
yeah.
and with all of this stuff, with the drinking and all of the no operator's permit, all that stuff, were you drinking every time you got pulled over? Pretty
No,
much,
no. I was definitely stoned, or
either on weed or
but I was very blessed to never have gotten to an accident while drinking, um or I never hurt anyone else,
I,
and I was very, very, very blessed in that department. Somebody was definitely watching over me, and I guess they had better plans for me. So
they did, and this is where we're heading right now. But that's something too, man, because with my drinking and all that stuff, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those days, mornings, whenever you decide, whenever you wake up, you look out the window to see if your car's there, and then you're like, oh, okay. And then, oh shit, you got to do the walk around to see if you hit anything. Then you got to see if there's any dents or blood or anything. And then you'd laugh about it,
like
because you got away with it.
I definitely I was more fearful of drinking and driving. I don't know if it was something inside me, but I knew, like, once I started drinking, I wanted to drive, and there was just something that wasn't good about that. Did I drink and drive? Absolutely. And usually it was over long distances. Um, there was even times, when I did construction, I'd be driving, a flatbed with, like 6, 7 slabs of marble on the back, and here I am drinking a 6 pack going, down the Deegan or something. Like, it's heading over towards like the Tappan Zee, and they tell me I got to pull over at the bridge because the easy pass is wrong, and I'm trying to hide the 6 pack that I just opened, and
Jeez.
yeah, like I did a lot of dumb things, and I was blessed and very, very lucky in that department.
So with the with the addiction and all that, I know in the past you said, like, with the ecstasy and doing that stuff and the alcohol, smoking weed. Was there any other drugs?
Yeah. So we ended up splitting. Um, me and the mother of my kids, and at that I was in my mid 20s when that happened. And from there, things, it went downhill. For the longest time, I never actually really had an apartment of my own. Um, for probably about the better part of 20 years almost. Um, I tried dope for the first time. Tried cocaine. Um, and the thing with that is, like, I rented a room at this one house, um, and it was a party house. There was like maybe 8 to 10 people between these two houses, and we were all young. Um, and there was coke, there was dope, there was crack, there was um the Xanny bars, there alcohol, pot. We were doing whippets, like it was a straight up, like, these two houses. We partied a lot. Unfortunately, there's probably only about a handful of us still alive, maybe like 4 or 5. And I didn't find that out until about a year ago. And it hurt, like, there was something to be learned there. Like, I got lucky. There was one night I did a whippet, and I lost consciousness, had a seizure. I peed myself, everything. And I had no recollection of it. The someone who was there that night, who's actually in recovery with me where I go, like, she had to tell me about it years later.
She was there when it happened.
Yeah, she's like, you were on the floor convulsing, like, it was bad. Um, from there, I didn't want the party to stop. It was like the moment, like, I got up, like, I had to go and find something else and just keep it going. Um, I started working. I started working at the Christmas tree shop, and I left from that house, and I started renting a basement from a friend I know. I started working at the Christmas tree shop, and I kind of I calmed down with like the other drugs, but I was still smoking pot and drinking like a fish. I was drinking 40s like on a regular basis. The moment I got out of work. Um, by the time the end of the Christmas tree shop though, like my last year there, um, I was drinking all through work. I was starting to really mess up at work. Um, I had keys to the place. I at one point I was a great employee. Um, then I started smoking crack. Smoke crack during the day, and then sniff dope at night so I can fall asleep. Um, and it was horrible. Like, I mean, at the time I thought it was great. Like, I thought I had everything figured out. I ended up losing that job, and I was renting a room a little bit bigger than this at the time at this place called the Barracks, and that was when I got introduced to like crack, like big time. And like you could go out of my room and you could take a left, and the crack's down that way. You take a right, dope's over there. You go downstairs, and God knows what else you'll find: pills, weed. The liquor store was right there. Um, and anytime like I would smoke crack or do dope, I had to drink too. It was like it was mandatory for me. Um, and then the marshals came one night, and it was on my mother's birthday. She's no longer with us, but on November 17th, on her birthday, the marshal came and served me with my eviction and was like, "You got to go."
Oh, so it was to evict you. It wasn't because of the drugs.
Yeah,
So with the
I
landlord or who called to evict
well,
you?
like I said, I had lost my job,
Oh, okay.
and I just stopped paying rent. You know,
When you get evicted from a trap house,
pretty much something's
you
not
know
good.
something's not right.
So I that was my first time being truly homeless.
Now, you just brought your mom that is no longer with us now. Um, did did she pass recently, or was
No,
how?
no, it was a while. It's been a while. She ended up having a lot of heart issues. She was born in 42. Like
So,
she had
so
me
she
late.
saw a lot of
Yeah.
these issues with the drugs and the twins and the drugs and
Hmm.
all that. So the bounty hunters,
She
was
knew about it
there
all.
a relationship with you two to come back, or was she in your life at this
I was
time?
I was always her baby. Um, up until the very end. I had like lost touch with her, like going to see her, and that's just because of constantly being in and out of in and out of prison, constantly going in. Um, Whenever I went in, she would always write me. She was the one person I knew I could write, and she would write back. Um, I love my mom. She never got to see me sober. And it hurts. The one person who wanted the best for me never got to see me at my best. And my sponsor always says, that the best is yet to come.
Mhm.
She never got to see it. Like, I know she's watching, but it would have been nice, but things happen, and they happen for a reason. That's
Exactly.
what I've learned. Um, but yeah, I slept in a laundromat that night. Um, I ended up going to a shelter. It took me a little while, but I didn't want to give in, because the one thing about me is throughout my life, I've always been able to figure something out. I've always had a job. I've always kept a job. Even when I was homeless, I had a job. Um, and it was like I knew I could figure something out. So going to the shelter was like me caving. So I went to the shelter finally, because it was cold. It's no fun sleeping in a laundromat, in December. Um, so when I was at the shelter, I got a job like cleaning the shelter, just so I could secure my bed. Um, but then they were giving me crap that, like, oh, you can't be you can't be coming in here drunk and stuff like that. And it's like come on, man, like just let me like I don't worry, I'm not gonna cause a problem. And I apparently I did because there was a few nights I didn't remember. Um, but at one point I was like, you know what, I can figure this out. So I bought a tent and I slept in a tent with one other person for almost a year.
No kidding.
He had a job, I had a job, and it was perfect. I didn't have rent. I didn't have anyone to answer to. And it's not like we lived in this little like itty bitty tent. It was a 14-person tent. We had three cots in there, like the one he slept on, the one I slept on, and another one. We just put clothes on or whatever. We had a food pantry, we had a stove, we had a heater. We
Where
for
was this at?
in the woods in Danbury.
So just like a public, like
No, we kind of where we were. It was in between a neighborhood and a cemetery, and the people up there like they came through and they saw us, and it was pretty much as long as you guys don't destroy the place, we're not gonna care.
so like the people that owned their
That
property.
no, that lived up in the
That-
neighborhood. Like it
Okay.
was just a patch of woods, and so yeah, I lived like that, and my days off, like I'd be in the tent smoking crack, smoking weed, drinking, having a blast.
How
But
long were you in the tent for? You
almost a year.
no kidding. We're talking through spring, summer, winter.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I walked down out of the woods and laid down in the pavement and had to call 911 because I didn't know what was wrong with me. I ended up becoming hypoglycemic because of how much alcohol I drank. Um, I being homeless in Danbury, you could always go to the library. And that was a place that I frequented, when I was just out in town because they got the free Wi-Fi. There's, obviously shelter. And I left there a few times on a stretcher and I didn't remember. I wake up in the hospital and, at the hospital they don't treat you for alcoholism. They let you sleep it off and then kick you out in the morning. It's funny, leaving the hospital at 6 o'clock in the morning and then walking to Walmart to go to work. Still had a gallon of vodka in my backpack too.
Man, so that's how that went. So you're a year in the tent, and where do you go from there?
Um, from there, I I was working at Texas Roadhouse, and the owner there at the time knew the person that ran the Residence Inn, which is over by the mall. Um, he ended up getting me in there. I stayed in that hotel for almost a month, paying employee prices. Um, and that kind of sucked because that all my money from working went to paying this room for the week and stuff. And so I was constantly borrowing money, just so I could get some alcohol or whatever. And then I met people in the alcohol in the hotel that actually smoked crack.
There's your in.
So I'm like, all right, this is sweet. All right, now it's starting to look better. And then I got like, I guess you could say, accepted into the Super 8 motel, which it turned into a shelter, a homeless shelter. So I left the hotel, moved into left one hotel, moved into the other hotel, and now I don't have to worry about paying. And this hotel was right at the bottom of the hill where High Ridge is, which is another project in Danbury. But there's a liquor store right there. All the drugs you need is a walk up the hill. That was when I saw my first person overdose from fentanyl. Right there, right in the parking lot. Like the lady Rosie that I told you about, her son Charlie, who I'm still friends with. Like, he's my brother. We were standing next to one another because he was homeless for a while as well. We were standing next to each other in the parking lot, just watching the ambulance just rock back and forth from them trying to save him.
Didn't make it.
No, they got a heartbeat, but he never came. He never came out of it. And it was somebody that we knew. And one would think that might slap your conscience around a little bit. Maybe but no, it didn't. Um, One of the people who stayed at that hotel was struck by a car and killed. Because he was walking down Route 22 drunk at night, and was struck and killed. And that didn't even, it didn't shake me from wanting to change paths. Um, from there, I ended up renting a room from somebody over in it's this place called Dodging Town. It's like right in between Bethel and Newtown, almost 8 miles from Texas Roadhouse. And I would walk to work. I would walk home from work. There's no sidewalks pretty much for most of the route,
8 miles. So you walk 60 miles a day
minimum.
minimum.
And the whole time I was just drinking while walking. It'd be 11 o'clock at night. I'm
Even
walking,
though you saw that person get run down and just
Nothing.
say,
nothing. And I did it for a while. Um, and there was this little deli and liquor store that was like maybe a mile from the house. And on my days off, I would go to that liquor store and I'd talk to the kid that was working there. And I became friends with him, and I let them know that I cook, and if they ever wanted needed some extra help a couple days or two, let me know. I'd be willing to do it. It's close to home, and they one day they offered me a job, and so I went to go work. And now when I first started at Texas Roadhouse, I was a homeless dishwasher, and I had keys to the restaurant like 6 months later. So once again, it's another. If I kept my head on straight and thought correctly, I could have went somewhere with that place. But I chose to give up that so I could work at this deli, who also coincidentally owned the liquor store right next door, and it was close to home. So I ended up working there full time, and every day it was. At, at first it wasn't like I wasn't like drunk every day at work, but yeah, we had nips throughout the day. It was very casual. They did a lot of like wine and beer and alcohol tasting, so I was always, getting my taste and keeping a nice little buzz throughout the day. The guy who I was renting a room for, he had got the house from his mom that passed away, and he just never paid anything. And a customer came in and asked me, if I was gonna move out or where I was moving to, and I looked at him like he was clueless. He was like, "Oh, the bank took the house." So here I am paying this guy, and he's not even like keeping the house. So I stopped paying him, and I spent a couple nights at one of the customers' houses up the road, and next thing you know, I end up moving into the apartment downstairs, right downstairs from the deli. So now I've in my Einstein thinking, I've got it made. It's about 100 feet round trip to go from that apartment to the liquor store to work and back home.
life is good.
I didn't have to pay anything, but at the same time, I also really wasn't getting paid. You know, I was okay with that. I'd eat at the deli and I just take whatever I want and go home at the end of the night. Um, I went almost 2 years with no day off. Um, Even during holidays, I was at that deli. I didn't mind it because, especially on the holidays, I didn't have anyone to go see. I was just spending it by myself, but there was people that was traveling. And one of the things that definitely kept me going was people would come in and that little deli area would fill up and it'd be quiet. And you look out there and there's just people eating and smiling and they're like talking quietly amongst themselves. And there was something about cooking that food and just seeing the way that like everyone was that kept me going. Because to be perfectly honest, when I was downstairs in that apartment, like when I went down there, every my life was gone. Like it was like I walked in and my soul stayed outside.
It's like your own personal hellhole.
Um, there was many nights where I would ask myself, I wonder if anybody would miss me if I didn't wake up in the morning. Not that I ever wanted to commit suicide, but I was content with just not being around anymore. Like, if it happens, it happens.
What about your twins?
Um,
Were they in your life at all?
that's a building that I'm trying to rebuild. Um, when I first got into recovery, there, we talked a little bit. Um, I would text them, they would text back. I would text them, they would text back. But then the responses got, farther and farther in between. So, like, I know I did some not right things. As far as being a parent goes, I definitely wasn't the dad that I wanted to be. Um, but it's something I know I'm gonna work on, and I'm gonna continue to work on, however long it takes. The one thing I know is
No.
I can't force something. Um, it'll happen when the time is right.
Yeah, I tell you, just from the very short time that I've known you, this whole half hour, 45 minutes that I've known you, is from what I get, you are an extremely intelligent guy and definitely a go-getter that came right from, um, you said going to a shelter was like a failure. It was like, and you said it more than once, I'll figure it out. So, you were very, persistent and all that. So there's no doubt in my mind that this is going to be taken care of too with the twins. So I know that'll happen. It's just a process, like
Yeah,
you said.
it is. It is. It's tough. Like, it does weigh on me. It does eat away at me. But there's in the program, there's no such thing as coincidences, and
No,
you know,
no.
and those times will come. However long it takes is however long it takes. You know.
With so you're at this deli, but you're still drinking, right? While you're working there.
hmm
So this is
towards
still
towards the end, it definitely got bad. Um, I was drinking cooking wine. You know, what I would do is I would fill up quart containers, and because I lived downstairs, I would stash them outside. I'd keep walking down the back hallway, keep filling them up, and then when I left, I'd go and get some beers, some liquor from the liquor store. I'd go home. I wait for them to leave. I'd walk back up, and I'd go with like 3 or 4 quarts of cooking wine back down to the house, and I would drink them. Um, and things were mentally. I think things were like going down for me, and the owner and we had gotten into a little argument one morning, and I was like, fine, I'll pack my shit and I'll leave. She said, your choice. So I went downstairs. I was down there for about 3 days. I didn't eat any food. Um, I drank everything, all the liquor I had left. I drank in the house. Um, and then I packed a backpack and started walking towards Danbury. And it was one of those moments where it was, here I am a third time, you know, homeless. What am I gonna do? And of course, I went for that olds. I made my way to the library. Um, and I really had no idea what I was gonna do. I reached out to one person who I've known, better part of 30 years. And at first, I couldn't get a hold of him. And then somebody else got a hold of me, gave me his number. And because of the Wi-Fi, I was able to use my WhatsApp, on the phone, and I was able to call him. And he said, "Oh, he's like, you can crash here tonight." He's like, "But just so you know, I live square." I had no idea what he was talking about. Like, this is a guy who did 10 years in prison. Like, I remember him from the good old days. And
it's
so
like
I went to his house. When I got to his house, I was probably about 130 pounds. So 6'2", 130 pounds.
when's the last time he saw you before that?
We were homeless together,
So
and I actually convinced him to get into the shelter. I convinced him and Charlie to both get into the shelter, and they ended up getting housing vouchers.
So now you walk into his house at 130 pounds.
And he big Puerto Rican dude, and it was like at first he fed me. Probably the first real meal I'd had, like, in the better, probably in like 2 years. Like an actual home cooked meal, like where I wasn't like, do I got to work for this, or and he told me to stay on the couch. He was like, go ahead, just get some sleep. And it was a Thursday. Friday we just kind of sat in the house and we chilled. We talked a little bit, and he's in AA. He didn't really talk much about it at first. He gave a couple hints to it, and Saturday he was like, "Hey, you want to go to a meeting?" And in my mind, I'm like, "All right, sweet. I can meet some people. I can maybe I can find a way to get a job. Or
Like play the system.
I'll figure it out." And I liked what I heard, on that first day. So that day I went to 3 meetings that day, all at the same place. And the following day I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna go back. And I tell this when I tell my story all the time, and people, they get a kick out of it. Like, I'm sitting there and it's 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. They roll out this big flat screen TV. I'm like, oh, we do AA on TV. I could do this. I could do this. I'm game. And come to find out, it's Celebration Sunday, and they got people on Zoom that can't make it. So if someone from Zoom is celebrating, then they're up on the TV, and then there's everyone else who's in person that's celebrating. And Manny, when I tell you that day changed my life, that day saved my life. The people that that were there in support of people that were getting sober, and not everybody gets it on the first try. And there was a lot of sobriety in that room, and they were all there for one another. There were friends, there were family that were there to, like, like, you can do this. And then come noontime there was another one, and I just sat there for it and I listened, and like what these people had to say was like, this is what I want in my life. I want what they have. And I had told one of the guys, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get to where you're at one day. And he looked at me, he said, don't worry about that. He said, you only got today. And at first I had no idea what he meant. No idea. And I jumped in. When I got to my buddy Paulie's house, I had no birth certificate. I had no social security card. I had no ID. I had nothing. Um, I had 4 pairs of sneakers and like a little bit of clothes that were raggedy. These people, they took me in. They got me undergarments. They got me underwear. They got me socks. They got me some t-shirts. And I went to that building 3 times a day, sometimes 4 times a day for almost 6 months. Um, I was there so much that even when I'm not there, when I'm working now, at the noon meeting, they still say I made the coffee, because I was there an hour early every day. I made the coffee at every single meeting. I Whatever it was that was going on in these rooms was working for people. Um, and then the Alcathons rolled around, 24 hours of meetings. And I was like, you know what? Nobody asked me. I just setting up. I'm helping them. The Halloween party, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. I was there for it all. Um, and the New Year's one was important to me. I My goal was to be there at the end of the year and then start the year sober, so I could finish that year sober. It was something new to me. I'm staying sober because I want to stay sober. I went through withdrawal in those rooms. There was like a week where my bones hurt from not drinking alcohol. I felt like I had the flu, and it sucked, but you know what? I went there every day. Um I constantly raised my hand to share. For the first time in a long time, I felt welcome. I felt comfortable. Like nobody was like, "Oh my God, this weirdo, like really doing whippets and having a seizure and peeing himself." Like, no, like
They've been there.
it's like, "Oh man, I did that too." Really, it's
Yes.
I felt comfortable. There was no judgment, and from then, like that moment going forward, like it was go time. Um, Next thing you know, I was working doing construction, and it snowed. Um, he canceled work, and I made it back in time for the noon meeting, and I was the only one there. I made the coffee, I passed out the literature, and this guy Tim walks in. He's like, "Hey, Glenn, how you doing?" He's like, "What's going on?" I said, just trying to find this 9 to 5 job." And he goes, "I'll let you in on a little secret." I was like, "What's that?" He goes, "I'm hiring." That was in January of 24. Um, I'm still there. I have a career there. This is something that I can take with me for as long as I live. Um, I'd gotten an ID, birth certificate, and social security card. Um, I also managed to put together enough money and got an apartment. Um, I ended up buying a scooter so I could get to and from work because it's like 8 minutes from my house to work. And the nice thing is the fellowship center where I go is right in the middle. Um, my boss's wife actually offered to buy the scooter on her Amazon account. She's like, just as long as you pay me back. She bought that scooter from me. I paid her back in a month. And that was the first time somebody loaned me that kind of money and I paid them back like that. These were like proud moments, like things I never really accomplished. Like I didn't know what it was like to be an adult. Um, and next thing you know I go for my driver's test. And for the first time in almost a quarter of a century, I have the legal right to drive. Um, and it was weird, and next thing you know, my boss's wife was like, "Hey Glenn, you want the Durango?" And
No, man.
October of last year, they gave me a Durango. It's been in their family for almost 20 years. And now here I am, I'm driving it, and it's
Still in the family.
still in the family. I didn't know anything about hydraulics when I went there. And I probably asked as many questions as I did in that shop that I do in AA. Probably to the point where he probably got annoyed with me, but now here I am. I went from cooking food, and I can work on excavators and skid steers. I'm not the holy grail of it, but I can put in the work. I can repack a cylinder. There's things that I never knew about. I've got money getting saved towards a retirement plan. I've got my own car insurance. When I when I first started, I went to go check my credit score, and it said 4, and then it said, "Oh, you're working on your credit." My credit's almost 750 right now, and I've never had these are things I didn't know about. I just come to find out I didn't know how to be an adult. I didn't want the party to stop, and since I've been in AA, I've gone to Stanford for a legacy breakfast convention. I've gone to an NA convention. Um, I've gone up to High Watch for their dinner and to listen to a few speakers. I've met so many people through them. Like the network that I have created because of taking the suggestions is through the roof. I text about 25 people every single morning. And it's like if they don't get that text, like someone reaches out and it's like,
like,
"Yo,
Glenn, what's up?"
Are you okay?" I never had that before.
Isn't that something that paying a bill is like, damn, this is cool.
I couldn't wait. I couldn't
it's
wait
like,
for it.
when do I got to pay this? Well, you don't got to pay it till next week. No, I can pay it now. I just paid my utilities. Something like you said, and it's what an amazing.
One of the fulfilling, like truly fulfilling parts, and people think I'm crazy, but it was like I couldn't wait for that first bill to come in. They were like, "Why?" I'm like, "One, I have an address that bill can go to, and two, I can pay that bill."
It's where I'm staying legally, and I can go to my account where I have money and pay that bill. I mean, that's just so. How I know that you're saying so. You've been with this company for how long now? A year?
It'll be coming up. It'll be 2 years in January.
2 years. Going from the main plan was how far the distance could be from the liquor store, figuring that out. Now working on hydraulics. Now getting a scooter, a Durango.
Yeah, I this is it's literally that life that, like, I used to think about having, like, when I was a kid, being in a place where it was all like, it was brick buildings, 18 apartments in each building, and seeing people getting into cars, and it's like, one day I'm gonna do that, you know and that day never came. Like, yeah, I had cars, but at any given point that could have been taken away, because of my stupidity, because of the fact that legally I wasn't supposed to be driving. I was considered a habitual offender. Um, but now it's, like, I'm on the board at the fellowship.
That's just
A guy who didn't want to be, I just didn't want to be sober.
that's the key is
To
you weren't ready.
Now I live for it. Like, I used to walk to the fellowship in the morning, and that was my time, like, I used to call it going to church when I would, walk to the
That walk.
fellowship, and I would just talk. And I used to always ask myself, like, why didn't you do this sooner? Why didn't you do this sooner?
It wasn't the right
And I
time.
always answered myself, I wasn't supposed to yet.
So that friend that you called, that was Paul,
Paulie.
that's the one that you're homeless with and all that stuff. He's the one that took you in, and so you're still in
roles.
contact with him now.
The roles they reversed. At one point, he slept on my couch when I lived in Laurel Gardens.
And here now, bam, he sees you at your worst. And the one thing with addiction is you can see the worst of the worst and the worst in people. But with that addiction, you can see the best in people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, incredible, man. I mean,
Yeah. Like, sometimes I still don't believe it.
you're glowing, man.
But
I mean,
there's, like, when I text these people in the morning, like, I like, now I'm into stoicism and success. Whatever you consider success for the day. It's going fast, going slow, one step at a time. It's still moving forward, and that's the way I see it. Like, before, it was always want, want, want. Like, I want this and I want it now. I want this and I want it now. It's like when I was trying to get my birth certificate and stuff. Like, there were so many times I left the Social Security building pissed because I couldn't get my Social Security card. It's my number. It doesn't belong to anyone else. Why won't you just give it to me? And I would leave there, like, furious. And as soon as you leave the building, you look to the left. There's a liquor store right there, and I had to. No, no. And I literally walk right to a meeting. But, these these things that I text people, it's all about what we've been through is why we can do what we do now.
exactly.
I say in meetings all the time, like, when you say what you share your story, you raise your hand, like you said to me earlier, you never know who you're gonna save. You never know who you're gonna help. And I enjoy not knowing. If somebody hears what I had to say, goes home, and because of it, they have a great day, and because of that, their family then has a great night. I've helped more than one person, and I don't even I don't even know about it, and it's so fulfilling. Like, one of the things I've also ventured into is Freemasonry. And someone had said, one of the guys had said to me, he's like, the way you're describing it is, it's like a bow and arrow. When you load that bow, when you load that arrow and you pull it back and you let it go, you never know how far it's going to go. You really don't. And that's, somebody helped me. And the only thing that I know now is that I got to pay it forward.
Man.
It's something, it doesn't work if you don't work it.
Yep.
Everything about the recovery game, like, I love it.
If I was so you hear it too. If you don't give it away, then you know what? What's the sense of having it?
Yep.
And man, I tell you, Glenn, story is freaking awesome, man. I never know what to expect when I have someone sit down in that chair. Never, unless I know them personally. And it's always such a honor for me to have someone uh, feel open enough and trust me to tell their story. And man, yours, uh, hearing your words, hearing the story, and seeing you as you progress through the story, you literally, once you got to the program and helping others, the smile on your face, man, says it all. And I just can't even thank you enough for coming on here.
I thank you for having me, man.
And
Like,
well, I
really.
tell you what, we talked before we started about my studio in Detroit. I go on all the time. I mean, I'm here every 6 weeks doing these. But Detroit, I'll go on sometimes 5 days a week, sometimes depending on my schedule.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I'm going to give you my card and the site, My Fight Our War, and all that. It's all social media, and Diane's been on, and other people as well. What you have to say, I'd love to have you come on if you want.
I would
Totally
love
up
it.
to you, and we
I'd
will
be
do that
honored.
because your words, I definitely are gonna make a difference in someone's life. And like again, thank you
Yeah.
so much. Before we end this, though, for someone who maybe is watching you right now, who's like, well, shit, I can either go to this deli right now, I could go get that bottle. Is it really worth it to take that walk past the deli, past the liquor store to the meeting? What advice, just for last second here, to tell somebody if they're having second thoughts or doubting themselves?
I would definitely say, don't doubt the process. If you think for a moment that going to that deli or that liquor store is gonna do more for you than reaching out to somebody or going to a meeting, I can tell you from personal experience that it's not. Um, my road was a very bumpy one, but I'm gonna tell you right now, if I can do it, like, so can you. And there's many other people who've had it worse, who've had it better, and guess what? They're doing it too. Um, all you gotta do is make it through today.
I love
You
that.
make it through today. We'll talk about tomorrow when it gets here.
Yeah, why worry about what's not here? And I like I said, Glenn, I can't thank you enough for coming on. And after this, we'll hook up with numbers and stuff and get you in Detroit. I'll send a link over and we'll do some stuff.
Absolutely,
But
that'd be awesome.
you know what? I really hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Glenn Titus, awesome individual. What you've done, what you're doing, and continue to do moving forward for others. And you're going to see more of them. I tell you that. So until then, man, it just goes to show you, like you said, one day at a time. Just worry about today. Don't worry about tomorrow. And as I always say too, man, addiction is only a word.
Yep.
Addiction is not a death sentence. So love you guys. Keep fighting the good fight.